Ready to get this going? All right. Namaste, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Usually this is in the Stewart Cottage in, Colorado, but I'm in Kansas City this week, and I have an amazing friend, Christina, that I want her to share her story, and she's just an amazing person, amazing human being, and just has a beautiful spirit. And just because of COVID, a lot of people haven't been traveling as much, and they've been kind of restricted. So hopefully next year she'll be able to come out and visit, and we can do version 2.0 or something.
Yes.
So this is Christina, and start off with my 3 questions I always ask. So what brings you gratitude? What are you grateful for today? Who or what? What's going on in your life that you can find happiness and joy and gratitude?
I want to say trees.
That's a good one.
For the past couple of weeks, I've been spending a lot of time outside.
Okay.
And I'm near trees. And I just feel like they have an incredible grounding energy.
They do.
And every time I walk in the woods, I try to take time to touch a tree.
Touch a tree. Tree hugger.
Yes.
Yeah. Feel
that energy. So I'm just really grateful for the oxygen they give and shade, and always just brings me peace.
There's actually some studies out there that talk about trees and how they provide this positive energy and they take away the negative energy, and like scientific proof about it. And I forget the exact miles, but in Africa, when a giraffe goes to eat the leaves, that sends a vibrational frequency down to the other trees, let's say 20 miles away or something crazy. So they're warning them of, hey, there's a potential potential threat, get ready, right? So trees are trees are super, super. To me, I live, of course, I'm surrounded by, evergreens and ponderosas and pines and all those things. So smelling them and then enjoying them.
I have a theory about trees.
Okay, tell me.
I have my theory.
Yeah.
So trees are around for a lot of years, right? They live a lot longer than people. I think that because their roots go down under the ground, they have memories of what has happened in the same area that their roots are. So whether that's tragedy or love, they get to see and witness a lot. And I think they hold on to that energy of those experiences that happen around them. So being near them is they have this wisdom.
Yeah, that's great. I have a tree in my front yard that's around 250 years old. So when you come visit, yeah, it's got a lot of sap on it. If you look at my van and you see all the sap, it's because of that. Because that's my garage. It's where I park the shade. So that's an amazing thing. Nature, I'm very, very thankful for nature and gratitude for that every day. I spend as much time as I can in nature.
Me too.
All right. Next question. How did we meet? How do we even know each other?
This is one of my favorite stories.
Aww.
I moved to Kansas City about 7 years ago.
Okay.
After a really, really bad breakup.
Where are you from? Where'd you live before?
St. Louis.
Okay.
Originally.
Okay.
I've lived all over the U.S.
Okay.
But I came from St. Louis and was living with my brother and his wife. I was dating a guy for 7 years, and I broke off with him and moved here.
Okay.
Kansas City. And I was in the middle of a lot of transition because of that, and was finding that the religion that I was a part of was really not helping me, and was kind of sort of negative. And I kept hearing messages about that I was a terrible person, and that the grace of God was what was going to save me. And I was kind of looking for something different, something more positive, and would bring about change in me that I hadn't experienced in the 26 years up until that point. I've been looking for.
So you've been raised in the church your whole life?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And not just the church, but evangelicalism. So a little bit more of an extreme version of that. So I was looking for something else, and I was at a pool with a friend who I was nannying with, and she said that there was yoga class happening at Hagoya. I didn't know what Hagoya was, but I looked it up. What is that? Yeah. And it turned out that it was $5 or donation-based classes.
Right.
And I was broke because I was doing modeling and freelance, and I had no money. So I was like, that sounds great. And I went to the class, your class.
Okay.
I think it was a Tuesday night or something, and I enjoyed most of most all of it. It was new to me, different. But what really got me was you said you are good. You are good at your core. Carrie, that one line broke me. I was just like, no one has ever said that to me. I didn't know that was a possibility, and it felt so good. I couldn't let go of it. It was just like, wow, I think this could change my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's crazy. Yeah, I had no idea. That's the first time she shared this with me. So, yeah, you never know the struggles that other people are going through. You don't know their back history and everything that's going on, and I think that's why it's so important to give people the opportunity for growth, for unconditional love and acceptance.
For non-judgment.
Absolutely, non-judgment. And I preach that all the time to people.
Sure.
Right? That this space out here, so just so you guys know, this is Warriors Ascent this week. And so this week it's the Female Academy of Healing. And the women have been through a lot, right? They've been raped, and they've been abused, and there've been so many horrible things happen to these women. And so providing a space for them to where they feel accepted and loved unconditionally, a space that they know they're not going to be judged, and they can be transparent and raw and authentic.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing is that they transform, right?
Yeah.
And they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And experiencing that, then you're then able to turn that to yourself and say, I can love me unconditionally.
That's true. Yeah. So we'll talk about that after I ask you the next question. So, who's been like, and it could be more than one person, but who's been like the most positive influence or like a mentor in your life?
I'm going to say my brother and my sister.
Yeah.
Because in my experience of growing up, the way that I did, leadership was actually incredibly harmful. So I did not have leaders that I looked up to, and have shied away from anyone in a leadership or mentor position for that reason. However, in the journey that I've taken, and in my entire life, the two of them have been like parents to me, and always taking care of me, and always being supportive and loving, and I just, yeah.
Your sister's amazing.
Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't met my brother yet.
Well, I was trying to think, but I don't think he's ever been to like one of my yoga classes.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That's why, like, I just go to yoga and I go home. I'm just like, you know, and that's how it's been with like COVID. Like, COVID has not changed my life at all. The only aspect of COVID, how it's caused any kind of disruption, is coming here, because Heartland's been closed because of COVID.
Yeah.
So now that they've opened it up back up, but you know, I don't watch sports, I don't play sports, I don't go out to eat, right? I still have friends and family that visit occasionally, but
smaller groups.
That's it. I mean, that's been my life for so many years, and so, you know, my life just really hasn't, like, I get up, and if I feel good, I'll go for a small hike, and I take the dogs, but in the afternoon, I take them for 2. And that's it. That's the only thing. I mean, so my life.
You were like in a cabin in the woods anyway.
Yeah, I was actually already isolated, right? It's like, what is it, Montana or Wyoming said, we've been social distancing for 100 years, right? So we don't need to really change anything, because there's no reason for people to come out here, and there's no reason for us to go anywhere. We have everything, you know. So it's, mountain people are a little bit different, you know, on that aspect. So let's talk a little bit about your journey after we met. Okay. So, you know, you are definitely good to your core. You're definitely beautiful, pure. You're right. Yeah. You're all those things. Like, you deserve joy. You deserve happiness. You deserve unconditional love and acceptance. So how did you transition from all that? And maybe before we talk about that, do you want to share like what it was like more in detail growing up, and what caused some of the trauma and that guilt and shame?
Yeah, well, the way that we were raised was very fear-based. So from my earliest memories, I remember thinking about hell. In fact, my first memory is being afraid of hell.
Wow.
Which is, for people who don't know, is a concept of eternal punishment forever. Which for a child is terrifying.
Right.
And what I understood and what was explained to me, on top of like just general pain, was that you would lose everyone that you loved. Which hearing that as a child is devastating, because your family is what keeps you alive and safe. and the leadership or whatever your community is losing that is dying.
Right.
So that's a lot of weight to put on a kid. So my first memories are of fear. And that caused a lot of trauma in how I saw the world, and knowing that was my fault. I believed growing up that was my fault, because I was sinful, which is what I was told.
Gotcha.
Caused a lot of intense trauma just right out of the gate, which if you've experienced trauma, you know that moving away from that is a huge process, because
Yes.
you're bonded with the people that you experienced trauma with, and then you have to fight a lot to believe anything different because you're so punished into one place. You're kind of backed into a corner.
Right.
So leaving is a big process. For me, it happened slowly over time. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship off and on for 7 years, which I, looking back, don't really blame the person for at all.
That's good.
Because we were both abused in similar ways growing up, with emotional abuse and religious abuse. So it's hard to blame someone who is in the same boat as me.
And I appreciate you being accountable for that, because so many people play the role of a victim and not like what I call the hero or the warrior.
Sure.
So that's one of the biggest pivotal, I guess, transformations and steps and things that we teach at Warriors Ascent, actually. That we are accountable for our own health and well-being on all aspects.
Self-responsibility.
Yes.
That's hard. That's so hard.
Yeah. I said the one I just wanted to insert.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did, because that's a huge part of what I want to help people learn as a life coach, which we can get into later.
Yeah.
But because that then allows you to make a different decision later. But owning that is really hard. So I went through a lot of stuff with that. I think that was probably a pretty big catalyst for why I did end up leaving. Was this relationship was perfect in every sense, except that it was horribly harmful.
Right.
But on paper and in our community, it was like the thing. So leaving that took some sort of belief that I deserved better.
Did you go to church with him?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we actually ran a Bible college together.
Okay.
Yeah.
In St. Louis?
No, in Hawaii.
Oh, what? Oh my gosh, you lived in Hawaii?
Off and on for 5 years.
Oh man.
Yeah.
What's that like? What's Hawaii like? I've never been.
Oh, well, the community that I was a part of actually turned into a cult. So the place and the actual people who live there are amazing. Like it's beautiful.
That's what I hear.
I loved taking hikes there. I hiked there all the time. It was like the only peace I had was when I was hiking or being on the beach by myself.
Hearing the ocean.
Yes. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
All right, so then you were in this crazy, toxic relationship.
Yes, and so I finally was just like, I'm in so much pain, and some part of me still knew deep down that I deserved better, that I deserved something good, and that part of me said, like, we're out.
Yeah.
And left, and that was when I moved to Kansas City with my brother.
Okay.
And sister-in-law at the time. So, yeah.
Wow.
And that was when I met you.
Yeah, so then you met me, and then how did you transition out of that? Like, I mean...
In stages.
Yeah, so like, you met me, and I said, you're good to the core, and so then what kind of prompted all of that? Like, from that point forward, how did you, like, replace and exchange all of that toxic and all that negativity with something positive? How did you find, like, the positive aspects and begin to realize who you really are and what you're capable of?
It's been quite a journey. I would like to say that I've now learned that I will never arrive, and that is an ongoing process, and that I will keep changing.
Right.
But it was a lot of little stages. Like, I was still deeply in Christian community when I moved to Kansas City.
Okay.
Found a church here, was a part of that, met my husband at a church here, and...
So do you still go to church?
No.
Okay.
Don't. I would, I don't really believe in labeling people or myself at this point, but I would not consider myself a Christian.
Okay.
So that is completely different.
Right. So can I ask you this? Do you believe like in higher power and God?
I don't believe in God, higher power, God.
Okay.
I think that eliminating that possibility would be narrow-minded.
Okay, that's perfect.
Because it's, we don't know that.
Right.
And whatever it is, if there is a higher power, then I believe that it's good.
Right.
And then I believe it can be found in any religion and in any people.
Or the trees.
And anywhere in the world. Yes.
The trees.
Yes.
Right.
The energy.
In nature.
Yes.
This earth.
Because anything living has something beautifully divine to it, which I think is like a mystic view.
So just so you guys know that's watching this, I met her. I actually worked with her husband at the Apple store, but which one? Because I worked at
Leewood.
Okay, because I worked at two. I worked at Leewood and the Plaza, and I always forget like who was where.
He worked at both too, but I'm pretty sure you met at Leewood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked at the Plaza, and then I resigned, had exchange student, and then I went back and worked at the one in the Plaza.
Oh, okay.
So different dynamics for sure.
Sure, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys met at church.
Mm-hmm. We at the stage when we met, I was leaning out of religion, because I was starting to meet people. In fact, I had this incredibly beautiful experience I shared on my Instagram. I did a whole series on my Instagram about like me leaving religion, like my life story with regard to this. And one story that like one moment that really impacted me. This was after we had met. So you said you're good, and I was like, oh, something different. That sounds like my heart said yes. Like okay, I'm gonna move in this direction. So I went to Mexico with my brother on a trip, and we were staying in a hostel a night that I did not sleep because it was so loud. A miserable night. But I was up for a moment, and I'm glad it was a miserable night. I think it got me thinking. Because right before I tried to sleep, I met this girl from England, I believe, who said she was an atheist. And up until that point in my life, I had never met an atheist.
So you guys had a nice conversation.
We had a very short conversation. It was so brief, but she was beautiful and kind and open and just asked questions. I was like, okay. Yeah. Like the most unjudgmental person I had ever met. Yeah. Just on the street.
Right.
And that broke something in me.
That's good.
I was like, oh, there's people who think completely opposite of me.
Yes.
Who are beautiful and good.
Knowledge. Yes.
Yes, and kind.
I will tell you that I spent a year in Korea, and one of the friends that I met there the most was an atheist. Mm-hmm. And we would go on these excruciating long hikes out in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And we would have conversations about God and Satan and why he believes what he does. And it's so enlightening to hear a different perspective.
Yeah, when you're open to it.
You have to be open and understand. And when you respect that person and you love that person, right, and accept them, then you really are giving them that opportunity to be vulnerable and share without judgment. Yeah. And I'm just like, I want to know your story. I want to know why you don't believe there's a God, right? And how like you don't see anything because this place is so amazing and beautiful. Like it's just like it just is. Just was created, and so like
so much beauty in that too. There's so much beauty in every perspective that's willing to respect another perspective. It's like wow, like you are a beautiful whole person who thinks very different than me. Yeah. And it just makes people more beautiful when you're able to see that. You
are gaining knowledge of their experience and why they believe that. Something in their past, just like something in our past, brought us here today. Mm-hmm. So
I like to say like because a lot of people from the place where I grew up would say I fell away or backslid. Yeah. But it was never like that for me. It was never falling. I've always taken very deliberate steps toward love. Right. And this is where love has led me.
It's tough. Hellfire and brimstone and guilting people into behavior. Yeah. Because, if they did that at work and if they did it at places of employment, people wouldn't be as productive. People wouldn't be as happy and as joyful. So I realized that a lot of people have transitioned and they're more of like public speakers and they're more of like motivational coaches that are pastors, right? And then they get a lot better following because they've realized now this is what people really need and want. They don't want to be guilt and shame, and it's just tough because you're like, I'm going to walk out that door and have bad and negative thoughts, and I'm going to have all these sins all the time because that's just part of it.
Sure.
And I get it 100% because I was raised in church.
Yeah.
So my dad went to like the super evangelical, speaking in tongues, and all that stuff. And my mom was.
Did you ever speak in tongues?
No, I was like.
I just asked because a lot of people faked it because they were like, I don't know what to do right now.
Just sitting there chilling, right? At least like they didn't bring in snakes and all that kind of stuff, right? When I saw that on TV, I was like, man, it's not like I dislike snakes, but like my daughter had one in the house.
Oh my God, really?
And when she had that thing in the house, I couldn't sleep because I had all these like dreams about the snake, and I was just like, you got to get rid of that snake.
Did you know scientists don't know how they move? They can explain like 90% of it, but they still don't understand the other 10% as to how they move.
Yeah, but those things get big and escape and like eat kids when they're sleeping, right?
Yes.
So it's like, no, I don't want something that can do that in my house. No. It's like having a mountain lion in my house. I just like
love it.
Yeah, so it's not me. So
not me either.
I totally get and understand where you're coming from. I want to say for me, from my experiences, it's like, when you're over in the Gulf War somewhere and there's like a temple, so in the military they have chaplains that do different types of sermons, right? So they'll have a Catholic or Catholic or, maybe Baptist or Christian or whatever, but you're just like, man, I need to go to church. I need to get my mind out of this war, right? I need to get my mind, so I'm going to this, I don't care what service it is. If it's Catholic or Buddha or Hindu or, I don't care. I'm walking in that temple and I'm going to see what's going on because I need some time to myself. I need a time from all this. And so then when you're in the military, you're actually exposed to a lot of people like that, right, that are atheists or Church of Scientology or different things. And I mean, when you're on a deployment and you're out there for all that time, religion, of course, and politics and different things and perspectives are going to come up. And that's when I started really learning a lot about different religions. Because I started studying it and I started asking people questions because their perspective and their journey is different. Yeah. It really transferred when I was in Korea in like '96 because their Christian religion is different than ours.
Oh yeah, don't doubt it.
Right?
I would imagine.
Yeah. The one thing that I really, really, really respected about their big, huge Baptist church downtown was in the basement. They had prayer rooms, and the prayer rooms were labeled, and the church prayer part was open 24 hours a day and never closed. So you could go down there and you could pray for like other countries, or you could pray for world peace, or you could pray for Korea, or different things. And I thought, that's genius that these people can actually go spend their time in devotion and be dedicated to something specific. I'd never experienced anything like that. And then for me, the real big pinnacle part was going to my 300-hour training in India with Bhakti.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I was around people that believe in a higher power and believe in a God and believe all these things, but they don't ask for money. They're not guilting you. They're not shaming you. They're loving you and not asking for anything. And I was like, wow, this is like what the spirituality is missing in so many aspects of so many religions in America. Because if you could just walk into a place and they're just going to talk to you and have a conversation, and they're just going to let you know about the good things in life and how to do these things in a positive manner and how to be loved and accepted without asking for money, without guilting and shaming you, then I would feel free and then I would be enjoying it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much in there what you just said. Yeah, because that's, the basis of a lot of stuff in our culture, which is kind of seeped into our religion, or maybe from our religion, I don't know which is which, is that we create a need and then we say, I'm the only one with the answer.
Yes.
You're a sinful, terrible person and I'm the one with the answer.
Right.
This is the only answer.
Yes.
And I have it. So
yes.
Come here, give us your money, whatever it is. But that creating a need to then fill it is not what you found. You know,
right.
You found something that's oh, you came here, how can we help you?
Exactly.
Like, what do you need?
Well, that's just like how, when people walk into my door, right? When you walk into the door, I show you around. I give you a little tour. Here's, the bathroom. Here's my bedroom. Here's the sauna. Here's the hot tub. Here's the kitchen. And then I feed you.
Yeah.
I nurture you. I want to take care of you. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was at home, and there's no expectations. That's one of the biggest keys, is that you feel like there's a hidden agenda, right? And it's usually money, right?
In the end, yeah.
It's like, oh, we need money, because we got to pay for these things and that. So, that was really kind of eye-opening. Another eye-opening experience for me was we went to a church I absolutely loved in Omaha, and I loved the people and everything, and my wife and I were having marital problems. And so he was like providing marriage counseling. And all of a sudden he doesn't show up one day. I was like, what's going on? And then his wife's not there. And then somebody gets up and says, hey, the pastor's no longer with us. We have an interim. And then she's like, who else is missing? I'm like, no, she goes to church secretary.
Scandal.
So he had been having an affair with the secretary for who knows how long, right? And that's to me, it's like almost hypocritical.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm like, hey, me and my wife are having marriage problems, you're like, oh, I can tell you what you need to do. You're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. You're going to do all these things, right? And then to come find out, behind my back, you're sleeping with the lady right there that like checked me in before I came into your office, right? So it was really difficult for me to get past that. It made me realize that most preachers and pastors in America are not way up here. They're probably below the average American. It's just they don't want to admit it. They're not vulnerable, and they don't want to say, you know what? They don't get up and say, you know what? I've messed up. I have these feelings and thoughts and emotions with my secretary.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's being vulnerable.
Oh yeah, and that culture does not prize true vulnerability. They prize perfectionism.
Yes.
How you present.
Yes.
So of course that happens because this person feels all this pressure to perform.
Yes.
Perform therapy, which he's probably not qualified for.
Right.
Perform like teaching, which I don't know if he's qualified for that.
Right.
Like all these things that like they're putting pressure on this one person to do, and that's not who they are. Because they haven't done all the inner work to get there, for one thing, because that's not available to them.
No.
And they have to look perfect.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to break.
Yeah.
That's so much pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that that's an excuse, but like...
But it's
perfectionism at its finest, like destroying lives.
Yeah, so that's kind of... I mean, there's a lot more stories that go along.
Sure.
But those are like the big ones that have kind of opened my eyes to like a universal love. Mm-hmm. The opportunity for acceptance, and that there is a higher power or God, but it's depending on what your belief is. And if you don't believe there's not a God, that's your choice. But I'm not here to judge you.
Sure.
I'm not here to sway you into any direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. It's like we need to be on a spiritual journey, but it needs to be your journey. And I'm not the one to tell you that path. Yeah. I just want to open that up and say, where are you hurting? Where are you struggling? And find that connection. And if it's with those trees outside, that's great, right?
Yes.
That's all that matters, is that we guide people to that area, and that it's not one religion or one shoe or one clothing company or one method that fits everybody. And this is not only the right way.
Because people are too diverse for that.
Well, they are now. I mean, if you look, there's so many churches that are closed, that are not going to open. I think COVID, did this to a lot of those things and businesses. Yoga studios are closing down, restaurants are closing down, hotels are closing down, but I have a feeling there's going to be this huge ripple effect that you're going to see a shift. And this is just my theory, because we're lacking that spiritual connection. We need something, but we don't know what it is. And so it's not like it's my job to find that need and ask for money for you to fill it.
Sure.
But I'm sure that this younger generation is going to be able to figure it out really soon, of how they can have that spirituality without the fire and brimstone, without the guilt and the shame. That's just my theory.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, what you're talking about is what I want to do in my life coaching business.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that for a few minutes, and then.
I'm just excited.
Yeah. So, how did this transition? How did you like say, "Wow, I want to do this"? And...
Well, I was in nature.
Yeah.
With my sister on a hike, and it was one of those magical nights where you could see, it was a full moon, and you could see the sun going down as the moon is coming up.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time.
Those are the days you never forget. Like they're etched in your mind forever.
Very vividly.
Yes.
So we were talking about what I've been wanting to find a career that I'm passionate about and that uses like who I am as like a natural flow, so that I would be passionate about it and so that I can use whatever my gifts and talents are. Which
so you've been listening to me.
Yes. And like I have when I've always been really hard on myself because of how I grew up.
Right.
So I was like, I don't have anything to offer. You know, like everyone
yes, you do.
I have tons to offer.
You
what
do.
I have to offer is an incredible amount of space for people to be vulnerable and to be heard and seen. And I was like, what job can you do that in that doesn't take 7 years of school to get to? And it's life coaching. Because I don't want to for life coaching, for those of you who don't know, life coaching is going from the present moment forward. How do we move forward? Therapy and counseling is looking back to figure out why you're behaving how you are right now. So,
that's a great example.
Thank you. Yeah. What I really want to do is help people move forward by allowing them to share their vulnerabilities and then see who they are, which sounds like is what you're doing. Helping people reconnect to who they are at their core so that they can move forward in a direction that works for them. Which I think for a lot of us, we weren't raised with that possibility. There was like a box we were put in, or what we were told to be, or how we were told to be, how we were told to present, and that limited our ability to connect with our real self. So I want to help people, just like you, move in the direction of reconnecting to what's actually best for them. Yeah. Not what's best for me for them, but what's best for them. Right. Because that's when you find true like peace and hope, and where you find your real passion is when you're working 100%. From a place of being grounded, like a tree. Yes, that's true. Yeah. You know, I talk a lot about that because, and I've done this study recently on happiness, and so there's like a graph. So if you think of your gifts and talents, you know, the lower one that's kind of horizontal, and then the challenges is the vertical. And if your gifts or talents are here and they're really low and the challenge is really high, it creates a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. But if your gifts and talents are really high and the challenge is really low, it's like relaxation. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the middle and your challenge is high and your gifts and talents are high, it's called flow. And so you're just doing everything systematically, seamless, perfect, and you're the most efficient at that. Mm-hmm. And so that's where you're at. You have found your gifts and your talents, and you're working with a big challenge that you have, and it's just enjoyable. It's not a challenge that like, oh my gosh, I'm regretting this. Yeah. I hate this. I feel so short. Like, you always make me feel short when we're young, because I'm like, she's like a head taller than me, man. And then we're sitting another gift I have.
I know, like a tall, you definitely could be like a tall model, you know.
Well, I was.
Yeah. So, how do people find you? Like, when they want to connect, do you have a website? On Instagram right now. I'm working on a website. Okay. I'll be taking clients starting in November. Everything's virtual, like the Zoom. Because of COVID, we don't have an in-person option, so that's going to be to a person's comfort level. Some people feel more comfortable on the phone. I have a client who is deaf, so we'll be doing a teleprompt. Yeah, we'll be talking via text or email. Right. And then a lot of people just like to talk on the phone if you're talking about something really hard. Right. It's sometimes easier for people. I have a friend who has issues neurotypically with looking at people's eyes, and so it's easier for them to focus on the phone to talk to someone. That makes complete total sense. So I've got more options because I want it to be available for people, whatever their comfort level is. Well, I'll make sure that I include your Instagram link. Thank you. And then any other information you want, we'll put in the description of this. That way people can reach you. I mean, I'm excited about your journey and your path. I feel like
Thank you.
there's certain people that should be a life coach, and you're definitely one of those people.
Thank you.
Right? And the thing is, you have just overcome so many obstacles, and your view has always been positive and enlightening since we met. I don't know how many years ago that's been.
6 or 7,
I don't know.
It's
Been a
a while.
while. It's been a while. And, like, you know, you have such a beautiful family. Like, I absolutely love and adore your husband.
He's pretty great.
Yeah. Well, he's really lucky and blessed to have you.
Thank you.
You know, so you guys make a great team.
Yeah.
So do you foresee, I mean, it's hard to predict the future, but
Sure.
do you think you'll ever, like, reintroduce any type of religion or anything into your life? I mean, I think you're open to it, but
Oh, I mean,
you and your husband met at church.
yeah, I don't think we'll be going in that specific direction, but I'm open to like spirituality.
Yeah.
And I'm open to, in fact, just this year, I've started to open up ideas of belief that might be useful or beautiful, like
Mhm.
tarot cards.
Yeah.
Because like for a while, because after leaving religion, I was just so like anything that can't be proven scientifically, I'm gonna freak out. But then I was like, wait, there's all these things that are actually like really soul fulfilling that aren't
Right.
necessarily true, but it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
they might be true to you. And tarot cards is one of those. I find like I get to see myself in them.
Right.
Yoga is a spiritual practice. I feel that's very
I
spiritual.
know.
It's partying for me.
Yeah, there's a YouTube video out there a Christian pastor put out about how harmful and sinful and demonic yoga. I don't know if you've seen this.
That's what I was told as a kid.
Right.
So.
And I put this response on there about, look, I've been teaching yoga for veterans, essential personnel, and it has saved their life. I put all these positive things on there, and finally people are like, oh, somebody with intelligence left a comment on here. Like, it's because it's just like, it's crazy to me that people don't do their own due diligence for research.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They believe certain things because somebody told them that,
Yeah.
but then they don't go and kind of analyze it. And a lot of times, like, you know, you think about, like, when you leave that experience, do you want to go back and do it again?
Yeah.
Did it leave you with, you know, something comforting and joy? Just like when we met for yoga, you were like, oh yeah. And I think you started coming on Saturdays with your sister or something, right?
Yeah.
So then I started seeing you on Saturday mornings, and it's like, oh, I'm getting something else, I'm enjoying it. But
Sure.
if it was horrible, you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't go back.
No.
You
Well,
know?
the thing is, like, when people do stuff like that, I feel like that's like a disrespectful way to approach anything. That's
Yeah.
not a research-based approach.
Right.
Obviously, that's just like, I'm angry, so these people are bad, and I'm
Right.
gonna say something.
Yeah.
That's not a respectful way to approach anyone else's spirituality.
Have you thought about it from the narcissist? You know, I don't know if you studied a lot about the narcissist, but how they are always right and everybody else is wrong, and their way is the only way, and that's kind of like the same method a lot of
Sure.
times. You know, this is the only way this is going to work.
That's
There's
like-
no other option.
Right. I think that's like the 5th level of attachment.
Yeah.
I think that's like, I have so identified with this belief. It is so much a part of me that it is controlling me that I will sacrifice everything to hold this belief.
I have another question for you. I don't know if this even correlates, but like codependency. Did you feel like you were codependent because of that?
Oh, yes.
And then you were codependent with that relationship, and it really wasn't like individualized, like I'm independent of you and you're independent of me. It's like
Yeah.
we're really going to be codependent, and we're really going
That's
to be.
That's exactly what that was.
Okay.
Because I was raised in radical religion, which is like extreme attachment to an idea and not connection with people. So the attachment to the idea was more important than connection with humans.
Gotcha.
And that leads to, like, when you're in a relationship, then the idea of that relationship comes and meshed with your religion. And so that idea of holding on to that is more important than connection with yourself or with other people. And so you have a hard time leaving because it's super codependent.
Things pop into my head, so I have to ask a question. So
Yeah.
if you could do maybe 1 to 2 or maybe 3 things, what were some of the things that you did personally to help you transform?
I mean, I would say yoga.
Okay.
Because for me, the way that I was raised is super disconnected from your body.
Yeah.
If you think you're connected to, like, you're raised to be connected to an idea, not a person, your body really doesn't have much place. We were told our bodies were evil and sinful and
Gotcha.
dangerous. Even our minds were considered dangerous.
And you did my power vinyasas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were breath to movement, and they were intense, and it doesn't give you an opportunity really to think of anything else except for what is he going to have
what you're
me
doing.
do?
Breath to move. Breath to move. It was wonderful, and that's what I've been practicing mostly since then, because and then I do meditation separate, but I like one breath to one movement because it really puts you in your body.
Yes.
And like really, really helped me reconnect with my body. Like, oh, I am here,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
not out there, right here.
That's awesome.
So that was extremely helpful. And then I would just say like talking to people that are different than me.
Yeah.
That was incredibly crucial. And it's been a long process and still a process for me to hear and talk with people who think radically different than me and say there's room. There's
Right.
room for us to both think very differently.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of respect. Like
It is. It's true.
I see you as you,
Right.
and I don't want to change you.
Yes.
I want to see you as you are.
I say this a lot, and especially even more because, you know, politicians and all those posts about politics so get on my nerves, but proving somebody wrong does not mean you're proving yourself right.
No, it doesn't.
And that's what so many people think, that as if you're wrong, I'm right. And that's not the
That's
case.
not really how the world works.
No.
Or
But
how life works.
you see that on these posts all the time because all they want to do is whatever the opposite is of their political affiliate, they want to prove that person wrong. And that's why this is the right way to go.
Mm.
And I see that as the same thing. It's like, that's not how life works. That's not how we work. That's not true being authentic and vulnerable and being real and being honest. It's not about proving anything about the other person.
No.
At all.
No.
You know?
Well, and like, when have you ever seen a debate really change someone's mind?
Right.
Like, maybe like an intellectual tidbit, but
Right,
really
not
the times that you're open to exploring new ideas is with someone who's respecting you on a hike in Korea. Like, those are the conversations you have that are like, wow, someone hears me, loves me, and I hear them and I love them.
Yeah.
And they're different. This idea might actually benefit me.
Right. And it did. It made a huge impact on my life. I think that's part of the difference between me is that I traveled all over the world, and I would try to get to know the culture, what made them tick, you know, what it was like for them, their everyday life, what their family was like.
Yeah.
And what I realized is, like, if you go to Saudi or you go to Korea or Greece or wherever, England, you'll just see kids being kids and not being judgmental and not being racial and not just hugging and loving and playing soccer, and they don't care about any of the other stuff. And that's what I realized is, wow, you know, the youth of all these different countries play together, have a good time together, and they don't care.
No, we are taught to hate as we get older.
That's right.
We're taught to take on the judgments and anger of our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so going out and experiencing and seeing that, like, wow, you know, this is really eye-opening. And also, and that's a whole other topic that I don't want to get into, but the diet. How a lot of countries don't consume dairy, how a lot of countries don't consume a lot of meat, and how a lot of those countries have very low cancer rates, right? So then you begin to realize and understand, well, why does America really push this food pyramid with all these things, right? So it's a whole other discussion, but, you know, it's eye-opening when you travel and you experience. So tell me, how long have you been married, you and Josiah?
5 years this October.
And you have a little baby.
Yeah.
Well, not little.
I mean, I still call her my baby, but she's
he's
2.5.
Yeah, like big.
She's this tall. Yeah. She
Yeah.
grew up fast.
And then how? Just tell me kind of quickly, like, how has COVID been for you guys? Like, I live out in the mountains, and so I'm kind of isolated, and it's different. Like, I'm not in the city.
Yeah.
You know, and my wife goes to the grocery store like once a week, you know, and so we don't have a lot of interaction. The only interaction we have is with people when we go hiking, and so nobody's wearing a mask. Nobody's, you know, it's not the same for us because we're not city people.
Yeah. So
what has it been like for you? Because you live in Kansas City, right?
Yeah. For me personally, I miss dancing.
Yeah, I bet.
I just that's a spiritual practice for me.
Yeah.
Going out dancing with my brother and sister and friends is just like is what we do. It's like a extremely bonding and
Right.
super connected. It's about dancing together and just like really connecting with strangers and each other.
Right.
And it's a spiritual experience for me. And
Yes.
I've been doing it like at least once a month, probably twice a month for the past 5 years. And
That's been cut off.
I
then.
miss it so much. But as far as like day-to-day life, I was working a job. I quit the week we started quarantine.
Wow. That's ironic. So when did that happen here? Was that March?
March.
Okay.
And then I was planning to start working with my husband, which I do work with now, but then we weren't sure, we hadn't heard the research on how kids were affected.
Right.
So we pulled our daughter out of daycare for
Okay.
2 months.
Okay. Is she back in daycare
She's
now?
back in daycare.
Okay.
Because I guess the research is back and it doesn't really harm kids most of the time. It's very,
Right.
the contamination and like danger factor for them is pretty minimal when
Right.
they're that young.
Yeah.
So we're not, we put her back in and I started working
Okay.
for him while I trained for coaching.
Have you done all the research on COVID and the ages and the
Yes.
mortality? Okay.
I've done a lot of research.
Yeah, me too.
I worked at a medical office while it was popping up, and all we did was talk about the research.
So my wife's in the medical field, and that's when I started asking, like, what masks work, or do they work? Which masks don't work? Like, what is
Sure.
all of this? And to me, it was like, because I saw a big fear factor. I'm not going to get off on a long tangent, but what I saw was a lot of fear instead of empowerment and education. And I became really disappointed in a lot of politicians throughout this country. And it made me realize that a lot of politicians didn't serve in the military. Because if they had been exposed to any type of chemical warfare or training, they would have handled the situation a lot different. If you go to any military base in Colorado, they had everything how it should be. It was completely streamlined, it was effective, and we're taking care of our military people and the families on the base. And so I wish that the state and local and federal government in the cities would have done the same thing. I realize in rural areas, like we've been looking at property in Oklahoma, and there's places out there for months that had 0 cases, and until the last month or so. So I get it. I understand. I tell people to do their own due diligence and their own research,
Sure.
and realize that the mortality for those people that are unhealthy is really a lot of the issue, and the elderly.
I had an elderly woman try to walk in my house today. She's like our person who like is the neighborhood person, and she's not cautious about anything at all. And I like held the door closed. I was like, I'm sorry.
You can't come in.
You can come in.
Yeah.
I felt kind of rude, but I was like, I don't want to like.
Right.
I don't know your.
Well, you don't know where they've been.
I don't know where you've been. I know where I've been, and
Right.
I don't know. It was just.
See, that's the thing.
It's kind of funny, like completely unaware, just like gonna walk in my house.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, because once again, like vaccinations, that's for it to really be effective, it's going to be a while,
Yeah.
right? And so, if people are really reliant and dependent on that as the solution, I don't want them to be disappointed that if they don't get the results that they think they're going to get.
Yeah.
You know.
It'll be a little while before that.
Yes.
Comes out anyway. This is our new normal.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I always want to provide a space where people feel loved and accepted, and they don't feel like they have to wear a mask physically, right, or mentally or spiritually.
Yeah.
That you have an opportunity to take all that mask, all the guard, everything down, and be completely vulnerable with yourself.
Yeah.
But once again, there's certain pre-existing conditions to where those people need to just stay at home
Sure. Well,
and not leave the house.
if they're capable.
Yeah,
Like
my
staying at
mother-in-law and father-in-law, they bought enough food. They went out and bought another fridge for the garage and a deep freeze, and they bought 6 months worth of food.
Wow.
Yes, they're like, we're hunkering down. We're staying in our house for 6 months, which was crazy. But I was like, I get it. I mean, if you're elderly and you
Sure.
have breathing or heart or any of those conditions, you need to do what you need to do to stay healthy.
The problem comes when you have people who are immunocompromised who
Yes.
cannot afford to stay home.
Yes.
Since our government isn't really giving a lot of assistance,
No.
those people still have to go to work and then they're at risk.
Yeah, and we, as a community, need to support those people.
Yeah.
That's where we fell, is that person needs to be able to communicate and say, what can I do? I've seen so many podcasts of people that now get to work from home that have, like, fibromyalgia or different types of ailments And they said that their life is so much more productive because now they don't have to get up and get ready and get in the car and drive to work and then get to work and do all these things. They're at home. They're comfortable in their chair and their couch. They're able to take shorter breaks, and everything's so convenient. So for a lot of people, this has really been a transformation because they have medical issues, true medical, and for them to go into the office, and people don't understand that. They don't understand what it's like to have some of these conditions like migraines and fibromyalgia and different things like that affect your daily life. Even your commute to work can be very draining and very stressful. And so by the time you get to work, you've already used a lot of energy.
All of your energy.
Right?
Yeah.
And so being able to work from home, I hope that employers and businesses and corporations start analyzing that and realizing that, this is a great opportunity.
Working from home is definitely a huge benefit to a lot of people. I think that there are a lot of other people that are falling through the cracks who don't have resources or who aren't getting help when they need it.
A lot of veterans are struggling.
Yeah.
They weren't able to get their therapy. They're not able to go to the appointment. I mean, it's definitely been, I would say, hopefully for a lot of people, a learning experience, and that they're more prepared going forward on all aspects of their lives. And I hope people are able to kind of dive into themselves and say, where have I struggled through this journey? Where has my community struggled through this journey? And what can we do to make it better right now? And what can we do to make it better in the long run?
Yeah. I think a lot of long-term change is needed.
Yes.
Especially for how we treat people in our community who don't have resources.
Yeah, we need to take care of them. It's our responsibility. As our citizens, we need to make sure that they're taken care of.
Sure.
And I think hopefully it will help with people with their overall health and well-being, and they'll start thinking about
if we can have a more holistic approach.
Yes.
I think there is a shift, honestly, a little bit more towards understanding emotional well-being as being incredibly impactful for your life as a whole.
And finding happiness and joy. You seem like happier every time I see you, and I know I see you about once a year, maybe now, maybe twice. So when I come into town, I lead a community yoga class and out here, and so I see you probably once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But I can tell the shift from when you would come into the yoga studio, there was still sadness in your eyes, a little bit of anxiety and depression. When I could see the shift from when you come in to when you leave, you're excited, you're like, this is good, but still in the heart, I could tell that you were struggling, and I feel and I can see that is all gone in you now. That you don't have that internal struggle. You don't have that internal dialogue.
I feel so calm in here.
Yes. And that's important because as a life coach, now you can lead people and you can understand a whole different perspective of what they're struggling through. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I'm excited for me too.
I know your journey is going to be amazing, and you're going to impact so many people.
Thank you.
I preach that all the time through my yoga teacher training, and they say that that's what I'm really good at, is helping people find their gifts and talents and share them with the community. Because that's what's the most important thing. That's really what's going to bring you joy, and you don't feel like you have a job. You're going to charge your fee. This is what I charge. But when you do it, you're going to be so extremely satisfied, and you're giving back.
Oh yeah.
And you're
I have that built into my business plan.
Yes.
How to give back.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be a point to doing this if it was just a business.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's got to be life-giving.
So what else? Is there anything else you want to share before we close? Anything that we didn't cover? Anything that you feel like you want to say?
I don't think so. Just that I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate who you are and what you've done and how you've given back in the past 6 years of knowing you. I appreciate your teaching and your energy and your love.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And so if you guys want to get a hold of her, all her contact information will be in the description. Love you guys. Thank you so much.